They'll be calling you a radical. So everybody, this video will have no language because I want children to be able to watch it, especially junior high. You know, I'm going to talk a lot about Monterey Bay, America Canned, Steinbeck, Stevenson, that incredible, magnificent, incredible gem. I got this on my walk in Monterey Bay, Steinbeck. You know, it was beans. So I'm going to talk a lot about this documentary. It's getting ready to premiere on P.B.S. The Return of Monterey Bay, as I did this video in Vienna, Austria, when it was debuted in Europe, to the moment on that historical, incredible street that I was standing on. And, you know, so the footage, I mean, it's spectacular, it's breathtaking. If you watch it, it doesn't turn you into an environmentalist. I don't know what will turn you into an environmentalist. It'll turn you into, you know, person with a conscience and soul. But before I start this, I'm going to go on a little dissertation and a little rant about Denali and about President Obama and the reality and just the facts and the truth. The worst president in regard to the environment in history, as McKinley was assassinated. He called himself the Great Tariff President. We know who Queen Victoria funded the guy that murdered him. Teddy becomes president. Only the youngest president ever, because of the assassination. Teddy changed the world. Teddy's the one that set all these places apart, or they would all be gone, because California has an incredible history. You know, and Alaska. California has an incredible history of raping the landscape for profit. And I'll get into that a little bit. And it's just the facts. And, you know, this, hopefully the youth will be able to watch it, because the post-immigrant generation that I call them, the baby boomer, the echo boomer, they're so ingrained in dogma that you can't even have a logical conversation. You do know how dogma works. They've eaten so many dogma burgers. The truth means total unreality to them. You know, they still think that globalization and sending our jobs to China, and I will get into this in Monterey Bay because the custom house there, and I'm going to talk about this. He changes the name to Denali with an executive order, which are illegal, by the way. But Teddy set those apart. You know, so the whole dynamic, we'll get into that as the false equivalency that he's done. This is a president that the holy grail of any environmentalist has always been deep drilling in the Arctic. This is a president with executive order that gave that to him. This is a president that could have bombed the BP oil spill shut, allowed British Petroleum to sew off the public bridges and spray disbursement on it for months to protect British Petroleum. This is a president. And I cannot overstate this, and I'm going to talk about Diablo Canyon, I'm talking about Monterey Bay, that incredible, magnificent gem, and I'm going to talk about the Mother's Heart. I'm going to talk about all the way up down this greatest ecology on this earth, bar none. You know, California, the old Pacific capital, Monterey, you know, the Mama's Heart, San Luis, Pismo, right there. Oh, I'm going to talk about, he could have entombed. They fully intended, that's why the USS Reagan went in. They were sent in, they were fully intending to entomb. The island of Japan, after World War II, was divided up at Yalta by the sea. The United States takes it. There's 2 million personnel. Everybody wanted them evacuated, whatever. And he had them stand down, and he genocided Monterey Bay. He genocided. And I want to very much understand, most of this footage was shot a long time ago. It's not recent footage off the P.B.S. documentary. The day that it debuted in Europe, to the day, and I did a video, to the day, Monterey City, and I will post it right here, issued a warning: do not eat the sardines. As John Steinbeck, and for you students or you teachers, the two, you know, thumbprint books about Monterey Bay really is Cannary Row's a masterpiece. It's an absolute masterpiece. John Steinbeck, what happened to all the sardines? They're in a can. America Canned. I'll talk about the custom house, I'll talk about the tariffs, I'll talk about the Chinese being in there long before Erickson and Columbus, and why and how and where. And let's remember, the Native Americans there, how long were they there? Thousands of years. And we'll talk about that. I'll talk about my walk up the coast, my activism as an environmentalist, my journey, you know, before I got cancer, after I got cancer, and how grand Monterey Bay is, and this incredible gem, you know, the Central Coast, and how everybody has always known that. And, you know, of course, the old Pacific capital. Stevenson wrote that. He lived there. He lived there when he wrote it. It's a breathtaking place. It's an incredible place. So, you know, we'll start on a little walk. We'll start on a little journey, like I did my walk, Pismo to San Francisco earlier this year, which was so spiritual to me, so magnificent. You know, I remember sleeping on the cliffs of Gorda here in the elephant seals, but just me and my sleep bag out there, sit way up on those cliffs and those crashing. I slept in the cove at Carmel by the sea. Ugh. You know, at the Elkhorn, I'm right there. You know, the greatest tide pools in the world, right there. Carmel, they're empty, by the way. As I was in the Monterey Aquarium with the grand, old, beautiful, old couple that are ex-marine biologists that tracked the grays, who alerted me that grays are giving birth in Monterey Bay this year when they should be going all the way to Mexico. We'll talk about the sperm whales washing ashore. We'll talk about the starving to death mama sea lions and the baby sea lions and the baby elephant seals dying of leukemia. We'll talk about the death of the, which I call it the Pacific Genocide. Now, there's incredible footage in this, but it's, you know, when I was a boy, P.B.S, I just ate it up. I just loved it. Well, you know, I want people to very much understand this, and people, this is all just documented fact, that's all. When Fukushima happened, which I've named the Pacific Genocide, they made the decision to protect the nuclear industry and not entomb it, and dump water on pushing into the Pacific Ocean, which I believe is the genocide of the Pacific Ocean. Granted, and we'll talk about Watsonville, Castroville, we'll talk about the over-fertilization inside, that's the center of Monterey Bay. We'll talk about all this and I hope this video can go long enough. We'll talk about all this. So, along that beautiful, incredible, magnificent place, the old Pacific capital, remember, from 1733 to 1848, and I'll give you details where to go and what to do. The history there has been preserved. It's grand. The custom house is still there. That was Mexico. The California capital was Monterey Bay. And by the way, a lot of people don't know this, that the capital before we went to Sacramento was really going to be at San Luis Obispo. But anyway, that's where the gold capital was. Before that, the Spaniards, of course, we know it. But and by the way, my grandfather's the guy at Old Town in San Diego I talk about, and I hope my walk this year, and I'm going to redo my walk again, and I'm going to walk his same path. I'm going to walk my grandfathers, great-grandfathers, who learned how to set tile, learned how to make adobe tile in the ground, these grand sand pits that I grew up in, and my plastering career, that's how I was taught by the indigenous people through him. As he walked, you know, it was with the Mormon battalion, went over, they walked all the way up the coast. He's the guy with the small group, him, Marshall, and a couple of the men that found the gold at Sutter's Mill, but they were in Monterey Bay at the old Pacific when the treaty was signed and they jumped the border again. So, in 1848, in 1733, it was signed over to the Mexicans from the Spain. Now, there's a tree that they did. This is the respect they had for the ecology even then. By the way, it's the trees there, it's so famous for its trees. I mean, everything. It's the greatest ecology on the face of the earth. The giant ponderosas, those giant, incredible pines that are Bixby's Bridge, right up, not too far from there, up above, you know, they're all dead. They, you know, solar radiation, camarilla, they're all dying. So many, as we know what happened to the sequoias. I mean, it's so heartbreaking. The oldest trees in the world, the oldest tree in the world got cut down right here on this side of the Great Basin where I live. I can get in the car right here behind my house. I live in Ogden, Utah. And by the way, I get a look at the mighty Ben Lomond every day. I look at it. That's the majestic mountain. That one, you know, Hodgkins drew that on a napkin right here at the old Orpheum Theater. You have your own Ben Lomond above Santa Cruz. It's spectacular. It's breathtaking. I won't stop there. So, you know, I started at Pismo, my walk, and the incredible Pismo. You can still drive on the beaches there, and famous for the shorebirds, but it's turned into a cultural theme park. So many of the birds dead, but as you go along Pismo and you walk, I walked with the beautiful monk. We walked to Diablo Canyon and did our thing. They called it the Chumash, and I didn't know this. A couple years ago, I did a gig as an environmentalist, and I called it Blue Hearts on Valentine's Day. And I didn't know because the Chumash had disappeared. They hadn't stayed active in their place, their dynamic. And the Chumash told me last year, when I was visiting Mothers for Peace and that incredible work that they've done in that dynamic there, he said, we called it for thousands of years, the Mama's Heart. And it was famous for their apples, but they launched their canoes right there. Teddy. Right before I started my walk, I was in Teddy Roosevelt's museum as he tried to preserve all those things in New York City. And I was there. Down inside there's a giant, incredible canoe from the 70s that was, I believe it was the Chumash. You know, I will quote Wallace Stegner, if you think the Germans invented genocide, you know nothing about the American West. I knew Stegner very personally. I knew Edward very personally as an environmentalist. This documentary, they debuted it in Europe the day, same day Monterey Bay issued a warning, do not eat the sardines. Do not eat the anchovies. Now, Donna can verify this as I was in Santa Cruz on the pier. The sea lions underneath the pier at Santa Cruz, of course they're right there because they're eating people food, whatever. And the comeback of Monterey Bay, and I don't want to diss any marine biologists because what they've done, the old marine biologists, I mean, there's places I go off on California, and rightfully so, because what they have done to that ecology, the golden bears, the trees, I can go on and on. It's beyond heartbreaking. There's a long, ugly, ugly history of genocide in California and slaughter of the plants, all of it. And that's just the way it is. And so what they've done as far as recapturing Monterey Bay is magnificent, and it took a lot of political clout. It took a lot of people fighting their ass off. You get down, I walked in places you have to have a GPS device to get down through because they sealed off that and they've taken back the ecology. They tried before Fukushima because the dog walkers, you know, got to rock Fifi and Fifi on the beach. How do the sea turtles come up? You know, I was in Oceanside, and they're famous for their sea turtles, used to be. They can't get there. You know, oh look, there's a couple sea turtles up by the wall. Fifi and Fufu love the sea turtles. I'm like, lady, the sea turtles are stressing out. They don't like Fifi. Oh, she likes to play with them. What? They're going away. They're gone because of dog walkers. They've sealed off so much of the area. So as I walked from Pismo, I went with the monk. We did our gig at Diablo, which was powerful stuff. And I walked by myself the whole way. Up through Ragged Cliffs. San Simeon is grand, but there's nothing like Monterey Bay. Except for the Mama's Heart. The Mama's Heart's just as every bit as important. You know, I always pronounce it wrong. You know, Avila. But I learned why they named it the Devil, Diablo Canyon. The Spaniards were standing right there with the Indians, and the fight was going on, and there was an earthquake and a tsunami. Let's build a nuclear reactor there. Now, if this doesn't turn you in, there's incredible footage in there. I mean, everybody knew. The Chinese were there, they knew. They had a customs house there, they collected tariffs, you know, they switched it over. So you can go to the old mission, which was in Monterey Bay, which is, by the way, moved to Carmel, the Carmel mission, which is spectacular and grand because of earthquake over and over and over. Earthquake, knock it down, the missions. There is the plaque still there. They worship the trees. They're famous for their incredible, beautiful trees. I mean, the trees are grand. So many of them are dying from solar radiation as this atmosphere heats up, as the ocean is dying. As I walked along, you know, this contemporary thing, Morro Bay. Oh, so I get to Morro Bay, I'm walking along, you know, and by the way, I hurt myself the third day. I overdid it, and I really hurt my foot, and it damaged my trip quite a bit, but I kept going, and it was hard for me. You know, I'll do it again this year, but I'll do it much in a more logical way. But I want people to very much understand the film is not indicative of what's going on in the Pacific Ocean. It will, if it doesn't turn, it's what it should be. It's what it was. It's what it, I mean, could be, I don't know, after Fukushima pouring in there. We have a mass genocide going on in the Pacific Ocean, including Monterey Bay. My favorite creature in Monterey Bay, and I absolutely adore Monterey Bay. Now, you go to Monterey Bay, right over there, here's the hook, that's the golf course there. Then there's it has wetlands, it has marshes, it has it all. Now, you hook around like this. My favorite creatures in Monterey Bay are the giant black pelicans. I mean, their beaks this long. It's incredible. They babysit through the aquarium like you would not believe. They check it out. I mean, it's not indicative of what's going on in the Pacific Ocean at all. It's well managed, incredibly well managed. But with Fukushima pouring in, what does it matter? And so we've had, in history, sperm whales that have washed up along the Central Coast that have been tracked for, well, not history, but for 40, 50, 60 years. You know, we've had 17 of them. How many have we had this year already? You know, so, I mean, we've got dead orcas. We got grays giving birth in Monterey Bay. And she told me right to my face, my son and my daughter, both marine biologists, one at Stanford, one, I believe, at UCLA. They don't care. They don't care because that's what we've turned people doing. They're becoming marine biologists and they're coming whatever for the check. They're not coming for what they came, and the reason I became an environmental, for the love of the mammals, for the love of that. I mean, that place will take your breath away even today. You go through the center, which I did. You walk up, so through Monterey Bay, it's sand dunes. You know, Steinbeck's place, it's incredible there. But that's Watsonville, Castroville. That's where they've over-fertilized. It's called Moss Landing. Moss Landing used to be so incredible. The marshes washing down there. I mean, the ducks, the blue herons, the snowy egrets, freaking, oh, I mean, it had it all. The muskrats. I mean, the bears. Oh, I mean, it was still there. You know, and the over-fertilization, the exploitation of the brown American can. Steinbeck would have a heyday. That's his place. It's horrible. I slept underneath the bridges with the migrant workers as I walked. You know, I walked, you know, through the Sandals all the way. Holy Capitola. It's a gem. I mean, it's breathtaking. Carmel. But above Carmel, you get into the cliffs and the National Forest, and you go all the way to Big Sur. Is a masterpiece. You know, over, you know, in the summer there's too many people camping. You know, I just take my sleep bag just into the woods. You know, up above, all the way. But then you get to Big Sur and you go along the bridge, the dead giant pines, but all the way. It's the boonies to Ragged Cliffs, all through those guys. Jade, I mean, all of it. It's magnificent. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no, just you, just me out there. I was by myself, sleeping on the cliffs. I had dreams about my father out there. It's very spiritual. It's very just in the trees on the cliffs. Nothing. You can hear a few cars going by, you know, during the night. Very few during the night because everybody just drives. Oh, takes a selfie with a freaking squirrel and moves on. I was standing at the pool out there, and I tipped over my water. And there's no place to get water, and it's very hot, you know. And so I had trouble. I was really panicking, you know, trying to walk out. But anyway, I'm showing people, hey, there's a pot of grays right there. There's some grays. What? Huh? They're taking selfies of squirrels because if you don't step back and view and take the time to look at it, be part of it, because you are part of it. You know, America canned. This is what it should be. What the footage they're showing is what it should be. The footage was shot a long time ago. The Pacific Ocean's being killed. And I want people to very much understand, I fought my ass off and defended it. While in critical condition, fighting for my life and leukemia. That's Son and Offering. My father, the Special Force Marine, is San Onofre. You know, a part of that getting shut down. Now think about this. That beautiful landscape right there at the Mama's Heart. There's a nuclear reactor there. This plumb full of spent fuel. They were never set up to have spent fuel in it. It won't take much of an earthquake, because they said there was an earthquake while we were standing there. And that's why the Spaniards named the devil in the tsunami. This is coming right from the Shumash's mouth. I didn't know that. You know, you learn something when you travel. You do something when you walk. So, as the greatest ecology, 95% of the sequoias were cut down. The oldest tree on Earth, right here, I'm going to do a gig out there. It's on the Great Basin National Park. I've been up there. Was cut down intentionally, knowingly. It was cut down. Killed the biggest mule deer. You know, the golden bears have been wiped out. You know, so many of the Native Americans were slaughtered. They had bounties, killed big ones, little ones. I mean, this is the path in the history. When they found the gold at Suitors, my grandfather was, they called themselves communists, the early Mormons. And he had the mill and whatever, redistribution 100. They did not believe in inherited wealth. And he fought side by side with the Christian wars in the 29 different tribes in Old Town, which they tore down the Martin. They're trying to rewrite history. The indigenous people, which you do know, the indigenous people, the so-called Christians, the people that came across, they actually lassoed those people, turned the women into housemaids for years. California has an ugly, ugly past that way. As genocide. As Stegner called out beautifully. I mean, like I said, if you think the Germans invented genocide, you know nothing about the Americas. You know nothing about California. You know, so the greed, so we have to have guys like Teddy to set aside and protect. And California, they try. I'm telling you, they try, but what we up against? What we up against? Stanford. You know, I've been inside the tunnels at Huntington Beach, you know, where they freaking, and the oil leaks and the oil wells and the exploitation. These people will burn right down. They would tap Old Faithful if they could. You know, there's no doubt. I mean, people fought tooth and nail. You know how hated Teddy was for doing that? Did he do it with an executive order? That's debatable. You know, but we know as time went on, Congress sure ratified it all. You know, Obama changes the word Denali from McKinley because he's a globalist. For I'm the great tariff president. They're globalists. And if you, and like I said, I want people to think, you know, the experiment speaks for itself. The nuclear experiment speaks for itself. The free trade globalist agenda speaks for itself. Both giant failures. And the youth will understand that. But the old Pacific capital, they had a tariff house. They had a custom house. The Mexicans, they didn't want cheap exploited goods in there. They collected tariffs because they didn't want their economy, because they were craftsmen. They didn't want to think. It's still there. It's still there. The history is very well laid out in front of the old library, in front of the old. It's grand, by the way. I mean, so, and they were there for a reason. The natives were there, the Chinese were there, the Mexicans were there. They smelled it because they knew it was the giant, incredible food basket, but they worshipped it. They harvested it at a certain time. And it's this time of year when they all come together. you know, the Chumash knew that they all came right there. And it was a very sacred thing. They never took more than they were going to eat. By the way, most of the Chumash and most of the natives there were vegetarians. A lot of them. No, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of them were. They were apple growers, famous for it in that region. So when you watch this documentary, remember, it's propaganda. When the Koch brothers were able to get involved and they opened up to P.B.S. to become known, and I'm the guy that said they wanted to kill P.B.S. Never forget this. When Fukushima happened, we were having this crazy congressional debate on the budget. Remember that? In March of 2011? Sacred cows were being sacrificed for dogma. I mean, our budget's trillions. I mean, how the price of one bomb it came down to. We need to cut $10 million out of one of two things. We're going to kill Bert and Ernie, pull P.B.S., or we're going to take $10 million out of the food inspection process, which our food inspection process is the lowest in the world as far as the so-called industrialized, overdeveloped versus underdeveloped complex. They pull 10,000. And you think about it, the insanity and the dogma and the crazy. But I want the youth to watch this, the people to watch this and understand. Now you know why I'm an environmentalist. You watch the footage, just take your breath away. That's what I've been able to see my whole life. I've watched it go away, and now you know why I'm so angry and I'm so heartbroken. You know, the cancer, the leukemia, the death of my father, the whole thing. One little earthquake at the Mama's Heart. It's all over. You'll never visit it again for time and eternity. You'll be like Chernobyl. You'll like the Fukushima evacuation. Same with San Onofre. They had a small leak over there on that beautiful break, that incredible cliff. You know, at Gorda, up through Bixby Bridge, on the cliffs, down through the national park where pines meet forest, which, oh, it's breathtaking. Carmel, the Cove, wow, it has marsh, it has everything. Then you curve back up into, Monterey, that magnificent gem that it is. Oh, what a freaking gem. It has it all, Steinbeck now. So, hook around to the sand dunes, marina, what a gem. Marina is the old Santa Fe rail line, still there. The old things are still there, the ding, 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 ding. I did that flipping my can, America canned, Steinbeck, he was a brilliant genius. He wrote about his own family in his place. Oh, did he get it? The old Pacific capital. So to understand that history of California all the way to the Spaniards, to the Mexicans, and the big, beautiful, incredible trees, all of it. It's got it all. It's the most grandest, spectacular landscape on this beautiful Mother Earth. So watch it and understand it's not indicative of what's going on in the Pacific Ocean. We have a lot of death going on in the Pacific Ocean. As I named the Pacific Genocide, it's heartbreaking what's going on. But it's what it should be. And it's what it could be. And if it doesn't turn you into an environmentalist, and it doesn't make you cry, you're losing that. I mean, I watched it, I had tears running down my face. I even thinking about it. It's that special of a place. And we're losing it. And so, we need young environmentalists. We need young people that really care. In a real way. Not a fake way to raise money or whatever, and we all rely as an environmentalist or human rights activists, we rely on public funding. I have to have, funding. Everybody does. It's just the way it is, but I don't need much. And I really love everybody that's supported my activism in this incredible fight, this incredible journey, so we can document it in history and tell the truth and what's happened to our mighty mother. I mean, the Pacific Ocean is our mama. You know what the word Pacific means? Calm. She's not going to stay calm and let them abuse her. She's going to erupt, because that's what our Mother Earth does. And it's going to be a tragedy that if that cement fuel, you kids, it needs to come off there. We got San Onofre shut down, but the cement fuel's there, and they just have another debate side. They're not, baby born, are going to do nothing, just suck up money and just dogma and fight. They're not going to do anything. It needs to be moved to Yucca Mountain, develop a freaking, and shoot it into space. And it's going to be up to you to do. And let's hope and cross our fingers like we have that we don't get an earthquake there and spill all over and we lose that for time and all eternity. And none of you will get to visit it. None of you get to see it. And my walk this year, whatever, I hope all of you come with, it'll be the most spiritual thing you ever did. I'll show you places that people have no clue. I know, because I've done this so many times, and I know that place. And thank you for Dynamite for mapping out everything to me. She knows. There's people that know. It's the most spectacular place on this earth, bar none. And that's why they all gathered there. So when you watch this, understand this is what it should be. This is not what it is, the whole Pacific. And if it doesn't break your heart and make you passionate about the environment and understand all this that's gone on is for profit and it's disgusting, it's generational arrogance, and we've just said to hell with all future generations, to hell with the animals or whatever, and it doesn't break your heart, then you have no soul. You have no mama's heart. Stand tuned.